Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by Giant Mess. That's me, the real cinch, Neal Lynch. I'm a single dad who loves to talk Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, and TV. Also like to mix in some funny stories and life lessons along the way. On today's episode, the Saquon documentary that premiered on Prime Video the same day as the Giants' Week 6 matchup against Philadelphia. Give my thoughts. Did it really reveal anything new or different? A little bit. So without further ado, let's get started up in here. Let's talk about the Saquon doc. Oh boy. I know a lot of Giants fans were like, I have zero interest in watching this. We had to live through it. How's it going to change my mind? I have no interest in it. He's a bum. He's a traitor. He deserted us. I was mentally prepared to have us lose by multiple scores to the Eagles and then have to watch the Saquon doc in which he, undoubtedly will shit all over the Giants organization and expose the Giants organization for being the dysfunctional calamity that they have in the past decade plus, and really just hit rock bottom in terms of entering the darkest timeline and really just inflicting self-pain and damage and just wallowing in sorrow. And then we won the game against the Eagles, and I was like, all right, let's just see. Most people are not going to tune in because what's the point in that? You're only going to feel negative about the Giants in their place. But it was curiosity for me because we heard so many conflicting reports. I said I'm going to repeat a lot of what I said after the signing happened, when the Eagles signed him in free agency, where it's like, how did this go wrong? Where did this go wrong? Why did this go wrong? I'm going to reiterate and echo what I said then and what pretty much all Giants fans have said. We understand why he wanted to leave. We understand why he didn't want to re-sign with the Giants. We have zero fault. There's zero fault, zero blame on Saquon for not re-signing with the Giants because we're a bad team, and no matter what he did or how well he played, there was a very low ceiling. So he plays out of his mind rookie year, almost 2,000 all-purpose yards. We went 4, 5, and 11. He plays great again in 2019, even though he missed some time due to a injury, but showed some really great. Put on a highlight reel in 2019. And it's like, all right, it's a step back from 2018, but still really good. Something we haven't seen Giants running backs do. We went 4 and something, 13. We had another losing record, bad losing record where we're not even in the hunt. So it's we get it, man. The reason why you're getting hurt or the reason why you're missing games, or the reason, even when you're playing at your max capacity, the height, the ceiling is 2022, where it's like you help us get to the playoffs and win a playoff game. But beyond that, there's only so much you can do. So no one blames Saquon for not re-signing with the Giants. Where we get heated and where we absolutely detest you as a person is signing with the Eagles. There's literally 30 other teams that you could have signed with, including the Commanders, including the Cowboys, where we would not take issue with it. You look at I'm still rooting for Daniel Jones on the Colts. I'm still rooting for Sterling Shepard on the Bucks. I'm kind of still rooting for Xavier McKinney on the Packers. I'm still rooting for a lot of the ex-Giants players, other than Darren Waller. I can't root for Darren Waller. Fuck you, Darren Waller. It's similar. I understand why you retired because you're like, why am I going to play for the shit organization team? But it's just him saying that, because he had to block the same running play, which was successful, by the way. It's one thing if the friggin' play was not successful. It's one thing if the play is not successful and you run it 3 times in a row and you have to block on it. But when it is successful and you're getting big yardage on it and you're a big part of it, and you're sitting there and going, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this shit, and you retire. Ugh. Again, winning is a cure-all, man. It really is. If that 2023 season ends and we somehow miraculously get to the playoffs with a 9-8, 10-7 record, I don't know how the ball would have to bounce, and we go to the playoffs, does Darren Waller retire still? If we go to the playoffs in 2020 and maybe get a road win in the playoffs, because it's we almost made the playoffs in 2020. I know the record doesn't look like we did, but we almost did. There were 3 games where we could have won. We would have gone 9-7, got the playoff berth, and then go to Tampa to face Brady and possibly put up a show. If you make the playoffs in 2020, do you feel like you have to press as much as you did in 2021 to come back? And we get it, man. It's just you went to the fucking Eagles. So diving into the actual doc, they have the intro or the prelude where they're basically not necessarily a cold open, but they're trying to show you a lot of the bigger moments over this 5-year journey. So this is why I'm actually very impressed by the foresight that, and maybe you could call it narcissism. I don't know. I don't know if he was approached or if he approached someone that would play into a lot. Because if he's getting approached by NFL Films, it's like, oh, okay. The NFL Films realizes like number 2 overall in 2018, a lot of controversy around that pick. A lot of high expectations, but the combine, like being so good in college and having an incredible combine, like NFL Films, if they came to him, okay. If Saquon is the one who initiated it, it's a little like, what? The last time they filmed over 5 years, which is just amazing. And again, it's a documentary. And so a lot of people like to treat documentaries like it's 100% truth. You know what I mean? Like, oh, everything that's happening here is factual and there's no deception whatsoever. But like, there are little tricks of the trade in video and film production where you can craft a story and omit some things, make things look different from what they actually are. So, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it completely changed my mind about Saquon. But you do get a little bit deeper insight into what the thought process was. And I got to say, this is a conflicted dude, man. The main takeaway I would say is he is stating and claiming, and the Giants didn't do anything to the contrary. Saquon is stating that the Giants were telling him that he's the best running back in the league, and he's too valuable to their franchise to be traded, but yet they're not paying him as if he's too valuable, and they're not paying him as if he's the best running back in the league. Now, here's the thing. He was not the best running back in the league. I mean, he was in 2018, not so much in 2019. Injury, missed all of 2020. Coming back from injury in 2021 wasn't 100%. And in 2022, he was among the best. But was he the best? No. And that's also a product of like not having a great offensive line. The offensive line was somewhat better in 2022 and was able to run block for him for once. And you could see how different the productivity is once you have an offensive line that's somewhat capable, because he had like the offensive lines he had in 2020 and 2021 sucked big time. John Mara, they had the brief snippet of John Mara turning down the trade, saying he's too valuable for the franchise. But this is a dude who views himself as a superhero. And I mean, he's got the build for it. You see him in the body issue for ESPN, or you see him, Pat McAfee was like fawning over his calves. He's like, that's not normal. And it's like, yeah, you look at his body and it's like, he's built like a superhero. And so he feels like he's not supposed to show weakness. He's supposed to be a superhero and put on the cape and save the day. And it's like, and sometimes that can come back to bite you. As a kid, he had the nickname Say, wore number 20 before Barry Sanders was nicknamed Barry Sanders, but was small, weak, selfish, and immature. And his dad helped him to get over that and through that. He had a 1.9 GPA in high school, so he wasn't taking school seriously. But once he started getting, recruited and offers, he understood the importance of college and needed to get his grades up, and he did, which is great. There's that crazy Lions Den drill footage at Penn State where it's like a 3-on-3 situation. You had 2 offensive linemen against 2 defensive linemen, running back against the linebacker. I'm so used to seeing that classic clip of that Lions Den drill where it's from the side and it's a bit distant, and you can see like the circle of players, the rest of the team like huddled around them. And that's crazy to watch that, and I'm so impressed by it. They had in this doc, I think it's previously unseen footage, because it is like you are maybe a foot away from Saquon from behind, watching him there. It's like hyper close up, watching him juke and elude and get past the players. It's like incredible footage. I don't know if it's across socials or people have seen that before, but it's like really blew me away. I'm right there with Dave Gettleman. I would have got swept up in that. I would have absolutely got swept up in seeing that footage, watching him. I mean, just watching him play in college and rip off these huge home runs, seeing the numbers he was putting up at the combine, where it's like blowing away every other player. It's like, how do you resist that? I would not be able to resist it. I was hesitant because I was like, people are saying not to do this, that we need a quarterback, but man, this guy is so good. Like, why would you pass up on a once in a lifetime player? They show him, at the NFL draft in 2018, and he says, "I promise you, I won't let you down," and that, he was going to give you Adrian Peterson level type numbers. Had the 2,000 all-purpose yards his rookie year, 15 touchdowns. Seeing him meet with Adrian Peterson after a game and AP saying, like, sky's the limit, you're a remarkable individual. But to go 5-11 in 2018, 4-12 in 2019, he said it. Losing sucks and it drains you. You can see it taking its toll currently with someone like Dexter Lawrence, who has been there since 2019 and has seen one winning season. You don't think that's taking a toll on Dexter Lawrence? And it's like, that's why I'm glad we got this win, most recent win against the Eagles in week 6. And if you can continue to get these kind of wins, like, you don't lose Dexter Lawrence, because it feels like you're losing him. Saquon talks about that 2020 game against Pittsburgh, the home opener. I think it was on Monday Night Football, where he had like single-digit carries, like 4 carries for 6 yards or something like that. He also missed 2 blocks and pass pickups on blitzes. And that's when Tiki Barber said Saquon is a big back, but wants to play small. And so in week 2 against Chicago, he tries to force a great performance to prove Tiki wrong, and ends up trying to do too much. And that's when he tears the ACL and did a lot more damage than I remember. He said that he was butt ass naked crying in the shower, which just goes to show you how much he wants to play the game and win. And he ends up saying that later on. He wants to play and win championships. And that was a tremendous factor in him making the decision to not re-sign with the Giants. Because when you get down to it, it was such a small margin of money. It was not a lot of money. That was the difference. $1 million here and there. And it was just, they're squibbling and squabbling. And it's like, if the Giants were a winning organization, this would have got done in 5 seconds. But it's the fact that he is so good and we're losing and he has an injury history. Like, there's a lot going against that happening. And you could see the split happening from a mile away. It's dating back to 2022 or before 2022. They showed his fiance. His fiance his now wife and mother of his children, seems like a cool chick. She seems like a good woman. After he suffered that season-ending injury in Chicago, they had an interview with her where she's crying and he's coming in and the daughter's asking questions and she's reassuring Saquon, saying it's okay, we're going to take care of you. And his daughter saying, "Daddy, you need a Band-Aid." Like, it was heart-wrenching. Like, it's hard not to tear up a little bit watching that, because he just wanted to win. He just wanted to win, and he wanted to put the team on his back and win. It's a team sport. You do need a little bit of a support and assistance there. I mean, I guess you could say that about a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, where they put the team on their back and win games. But from the running back position, it's a little bit harder. He ended up having the surgery on October 30th, 2020. He learned that he was not invincible and he was human after all. He said it was the biggest challenge of his life was coming back from the injury, having that injury and coming back from the injury. He said he had never had anything like that happen to him, a setback like that, in his entire life up to that point. I mean, this shows you just how much he is concerned about how he is perceived in terms of his strength. He does not want to portray weakness or display weakness. He's very image conscious. So, like, he didn't want to, after his surgery, he didn't want to leave the hospital in a wheelchair. And they had to, like, really cajole and convince him that, like, this is something that you absolutely have to do. And his quote is, "God never really tested me." And so this is like one of the first times where he's had to rely on others. And it took a lot out of him. Anytime that someone has an ACL injury, Like they just come back and they're not quite the same. They're not playing at the same kind of level. It's getting over that psychological barrier. People had cited Odell having an ACL, even Adrian Peterson having the ACL injury, but they did not have the same injury. Saquon had, quote, a lot more. So he's coming back from a lot more. This is September 2021. We're at the beginning of the 2021 season. It was really hard and tough for him to sit on his couch and watch the Giants in 2020, knowing that if he does play, we probably do make the playoffs. If we have a healthy Saquon in 2020, we're probably making the playoffs. And then beginning of the 2021 season, he, admits that the ACL was the low point of his life. And then we have that, 14-point loss to the Broncos at home to open the season. And he said that he would get hit by Broncos players during this game. And he said that they were going easy on him. They felt like they were going light on him. He would get hit and Broncos players would ask him, "Hey, you good? Are you okay?" It's just like, that's how much, forget about how much Saquon Barkley means to the Giants. Everyone recognizes how much Saquon Barkley means to the game of football. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm overreacting and being dramatic and exaggerating, and maybe I am a little skosh. But from the moment that I saw him hurdle the Chicago Bears defender his rookie season, and he had that pose, which was, for the longest time was his signature, like Michael Jordan logo type thing. I said, this guy's a gold jacket. This guy is an automatic Hall of Famer. We have a generational player who needs to be a lifetime Giant. That didn't end up happening. It just didn't go according to plan. He felt like he was not doing anything to help the team. And what sucks is, where was the coaching staff? Is the assumption from the coaching staff that, oh, this is a freak athlete who's physically gifted, who can do it all, catch, run, strong, elusive, fast. So we don't need to take care of him. Like, we don't need to develop him or nurture him or foster his growth, or because you didn't see it in the documentary, and maybe that was on purpose by Saquon and his team to be like, no, I don't want to show how the Giants coaching staff supported me or how the organization supported me. He eventually does at the end, after he's won the Super Bowl, or not after he won the Super Bowl, but that final game of the 2024 regular season where the Giants go into Philly to play the Eagles, and Saquon has the opportunity to break the all-time NFL rushing record by Eric Dickerson and decides to sit out. And he kind of mentions that, like, I owe a great debt of gratitude to the training staff that helped me to get back on my feet. He was like, there's a lot of people in that building who helped me get back on my feet and get me back to a level where I could play again. And I owe them a lot. And so, I feel for them and I thank them a lot. It didn't seem like he had any kind of affinity for, or looking back, any kind of like love for the coaching staffs at all. There was no mention of, like, forget the head coaches, all right? You didn't mention them at all. But like, not mentioning your position coach or an offensive coordinator or anyone that outside the training team that he could point to and be like, oh man, great mentor, great this, great that. There was none of that. So it's like, oh, I've got a lot of love for the people in that building, but it's like, he didn't cite anyone specifically and be like, pointed out this person and been like, when I was down and out, or when I felt like I wasn't doing my best for the team, this person came along and helped me out. It was just, there was none of that. The blame is on the Giants. I think there's no discussion there. We made so many mistakes. Just as we fucked up Daniel Jones, we fucked up Saquon Barkley just as much, if not more. Week 5, that 2021 game against the Cowboys in Dallas, that's where he gets that other freak injury where he's just not paying attention. He runs the route. It's a bad pass, incomplete, and he's looking at the ball and running, not looking where he's running, and then he, steps on the Cowboys' foot and really bends his ankle. My God, I didn't realize that it was that bad. I mean, I knew it was bad when they showed the replay, but then when they show him, I don't remember seeing this live on the broadcast, but in the doc, they have the camera goes on his ankle, and it is the most swollen ankle I've ever seen in my life, and I've had cankles my entire life. I've had, long holiday weekends where it's like I'm just drinking booze and eating all the wrong foods, and my cankles are flare up big time. I've never seen an ankle that swollen in my life. And he couldn't stop shaking his head. And I've been there. There's been 2 times in my life. I can't really get into specifics, but there have been 2 times in my life where literally things are happening where it's like everything's going against me and there's nothing I can do. And you can't even talk. You can't even spit anything out. And all you can do is shake your head. And I've been there. I've literally been on a video chat with my mom where it's like I just shake my head, continue shaking my head for 5 minutes straight when I just cannot say anything. And that's exactly where he was in that position. And I feel for him. And he kept saying to himself, not again, not again. And it was the most fluky injury. And it was just bad luck. And so that's when all the critics come out and say, well, he's missed 17 games in 2 years. He's injury prone. And then he lost confidence because he started believing it. Because why wouldn't he believe it? I mean, I'm there right now where it's like 15 months unemployed. Maybe I'm not a good employee. Maybe I'm not a good worker. Maybe I don't have skill or talent or value because no one's coming to me and saying we love what you do. We want to pay you. So you lose confidence and you start to believe it. And so he started to believe, like, am I injury prone? And of course, another shitty season in 2021 where you go 4-13 and have a really awful end of the season. And so then that's when the trade rumors start coming up because he's now entering the final year of his contract. So I believe they took the 5th year option on him for 2022, right? Final year of your contract, and the trade rumors start in February of 2022. Go 2022 offseason. Most of the discussion around what the Giants would get back in a trade for him is like a 3rd or 4th rounder, which is kind of crazy to think about. His wife or fiance says that having a daughter, or he admits that having a daughter softens you. Jada Claire Barkley, and so we got to see that side of him, which was cool and nice. He ends up having a baby boy, Saquon Barkley Jr., and he keeps saying how born in New York, and this is where Saquon can be frustrating for a lot of fans because it's like you say one thing and then something happens and you say something that's like different, and it's like, well, which one do you want us to believe, or which one do you want us to think is accurate? Because he keeps saying, I don't want to leave New York. I don't want to leave New York. I was born in New York. I don't want to leave New York. And then he gets the offer from the Eagles, which is just like, because they guaranteed more money or something. And he's like, well, I was born in the Bronx, but I spent way more time and I grew up and I was raised in Philly. It's just like, well, but what was all that talk about how you don't want to leave New York? That's where I said conflicted, because it seems like he really struggled to come to terms with, do I really want to be a New York Giant? Like, I'm saying the right thing, but am I saying, like, it sounded like he was saying the things he wanted the fan base to hear so he could get the fan base support behind him and maybe convince the Giants accounting teams to go above and beyond in terms of the offer. Like, it was almost like he was leveraging, he was playing a part in pretending that he wanted to be a Giant for life and saying the right things because he didn't want to be viewed as a villain. Again, it goes back to optics. It's insane that this is the discussion that we have to have, that the Giants are concerned about optics and that Saquon's concerned about optics, and it's just like, motherfuck, you guys. How did we go so off the rails with this, and how did we get this so wrong? No, he didn't want to be a Giant for life. It's that simple. No, he did not want to be a Giant for life. He kept saying that, they say it's business, it's not personal, it's business, but business decisions are personal. It's like, yeah, this was a personal decision. You personally did not want to play with the Giants anymore. And the Giants didn't want to pay you based on what the market was saying. A lot of factors and variables go into this. The devaluation of the running back position. This was all during that period where it's like, you shouldn't draft a running back high, and You shouldn't pay a running back this much after their second contract, around age 30. You can see the analytics and the statistics show there's a steep decline in productivity and blah, blah, blah. And so, like, all that was going against Saquon. Both sides handled it poorly. The Giants handled it worse. But this whole picture that Saquon was painting about, like, oh, I'm saying the right thing, I'm doing the right thing. It's like, that's not, is that what you really truly believed? Because your actions and what you said after you signed with the Eagles contradict what you said when we were going through this period of negotiation. So anyway, heading into the 2022 season, he said his leg felt good. And in the 2022 training camp, he was asked, will I be a Giant next year? And he said, I don't know. I would love to be a Giant for the rest of my life. Again, is that something that you're saying to gain favor with the fan base, to get them on your side, to have them push for the front office and tag the front office and write letters to Mara and go on socials and saying it needs to happen? Or did you really feel that way? He said that the contract talks have got to come soon. If the Giants wait until the end of the season, he's just going to enter free agency. So he took kind of a hard-headed approach to that negotiation coming into it. A deal would show him or show them that they see me as part of a future winning a championship. If you don't see it, trade me. So if you don't see him being part of a future where they win a championship, then trade him. He then goes on to say, this is where, he gets off to the good start. Giants get off to the good start. And then we have that period around the Texans game. This is where it's like the turning point. If you're looking at a meter, right? The meter keeps going down and down and down in terms of his confidence level in getting a deal done with the Giants. And the Giants doing these little things that are making him think that they're not going to give him what he's worth. Likewise, the Giants, there are certain things that are pushing them away from making a deal. And this contract meeting in the 2022 season, around when the Texans game happened, to me, was the one that had the biggest negative effect and was really the beginning of the end. The scene is basically he's in an SUV, he's in the back seat, and he's talking to the camera, and he's talking on the phone to someone. I forget who. It might have been his wife, his dad, agent, I'm not sure. But he's wearing a sweater that is straight up Eagles colors. Like, it's green, it's white, silver, black. Like, it's almost, if you didn't know he played for the Giants, you'd be like, oh, is he like a play for the Eagles? And on that phone call, he's saying the contract meeting was a joke. It was a slap in the face, and it was almost cursory in the sense that it seemed like the Giants brass were just checking a box. They've been instructed to have this negotiation, so it looks like they're making an effort, but in reality, they had no real drive to get a deal done, which aligns with what we saw and heard in Hard Knocks and what we're seeing in the Saquon doc. Like, I really don't think that Joe Schoen had any real burning desire to get a deal done with Saquon Barkley. And so, he called the contract meeting a joke. And what happens the game after that contract meeting that was a joke in Saquon's eyes, against the Texans at home, they give him the ball 35 times. He feels that was the Giants brass meddling with the Giants game plan and saying, we're going to show the world why you don't deserve the contract. We're going to give you the ball 35 times and see if you're able to sustain that kind of workload. So Saquon viewed it as a punishment for what happened in that contract meeting, which is just a very weird, ironic way to go about things if you're the Giants. Like, if that, and who knows if that's actually true, they'll never own up to it. But like, if that's honestly what happened, what the fuck? And given how Schoen has behaved and acted outside of just the negotiations with Saquon, it also doesn't really give me a whole lot of confidence in him as a general manager to handle business. basically Saquon was like, if you don't see this, me helping you win a championship, then trade me, which makes sense. And honestly, what the Giants should have done, and they didn't. And he also said he was going to go into another meeting, a follow up meeting with them, because he was riled up. And he was going to say, if you don't make me the highest paid running back, trade me. He eventually backed off of that and said he needed to chill out, and he did, because he wanted to do the right thing. He wanted to say the right thing, blah, blah, blah. He has again, conflicted, that internal strife and struggle of, am I a hero or a villain? I'm portraying myself. I like to think of myself as a superhero, and I want to, that's what I would present public facing. But he kept on having these like Anakin Skywalker moments where it's like you could see the dark side just coming forth within him of like, I want to be the villain. And even his daughter like was playing into that kind of story arc as well. She's like, I have to paraphrase it, but she's like, you could be the villain. Why don't you be the villain? So they get the playoff win against the Vikings. They have that really great scene where he's hanging out with his daughter. He's like, what's that song that you and mommy like to sing? Let's play it. They play it. And it was like, sure, it was probably choreographed and coordinated and set up and made to look like it's candid and casual and happening on the fly. But this song was so like on point with what Saquon has gone through up to that point. Like, you have to find sun on a cloudy day. I don't know if that's the title, but that was like the main theme or message from that song. Find sun on a cloudy day. And so, cloudy day, I mean, it's a cloudy tenure with the Giants. It's been cloudy from day one. And he's trying to find sun. And even went so far as to say that Philly ain't going to be nothing going into that divisional game. Now, we got smoked in that divisional game. It wasn't even close. We got blown the fuck out. He had 7 yards on 4 carries. Afterwards, he said, we were not more talented than that team. And he only had 4 touches in the first half, which is, again, inexcusable. This is where I got a little confused, because the day after the loss, it seemed like the Giants wanted to offer him $3 or $4 million less than what he was asking. You'd have to think that if Shane weren't a first-year GM, because that was his first year in 2022, that if he had years of experience under his belt and he pulled this shit, he probably would have been canned, I would think. But the franchise tag is universally hated by players and beloved by owners and GMs, because you're typically able to get a talent at a more affordable cost than you would having to sign them to a long-term deal. He was asked after the 2022 season, Saquon was asked, will the Giants pay me what I'm worth? And he definitive no. So it went from, I don't know, before the 2022 season to no after the 2022 season. And then this is the clip that was played at the beginning of the episode that they bring back, where he's sitting on the couch with his daughter, and he's like, where do you think I should play? And the daughter was like, I think you should play on the Eagles. And that's when Saquon's like, oh, you get to be closer to family. So this is right before the deadline. It's about less than an hour before the deadline before free agency begins in 2023, right? So we're in the 2023 offseason. Saquon's now impending free agent, as is Daniel Jones. This is like basically the pivotal moment for this Giants franchise, that they chose wrong. Across the board, they chose wrong. And then he gets a text from Daniel Jones. No clue what this said. I have no clue. If someone has an idea of what this text said, I would be very curious and interested to know. And his response to the text was just, oh my God. And so the assumption there is that Daniel came out of it, his meeting, and immediately informed Saquon that he got a deal done. And that was surprising to Saquon, as it was surprising to a lot of people at the time. Because if you were to ask, like, who's the better player, who's the more valuable player for the Giants over their tenure, it would be Saquon Barkley, not Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley was the best player on the team. So for Daniel to get a deal first, that's another slap on the face to Saquon. Right after the text from DJ, which they got the deal done, the deadline was at 4 o'clock, right? So if you don't sign Daniel and you don't sign Saquon by 4 o'clock, they both become unrestricted free agents. You would ideally want to get deals done with both of them, which I was pushing for getting deals done with both of them. And you don't want to have to franchise tag one of them, but you can franchise tag with them just to save your ass and be like, let's give us a little more time to negotiate through the details. And everyone made such a big deal about that Daniel Jones contract. And it's like, ultimately, did it really end up being this long-term detrimental contract or agreement that really hurt the franchise financially? No, not really. And I honestly don't think the reported deal that Saquon could have got from the Giants would have hurt the franchise either. Jones gets the contract done, signed at 352, and then they immediately, like 2 minutes later, franchise tag Saquon at 354. So 6 minutes before the deadline, which is just wild. He then has the call with Joe Schoen, and you can tell that Saquon's bummed, really disappointed, and that's probably when he got that franchise tag that was like, all right, now the meter and the level going down even more. There were analytics, historical data, precedents, our running back's performance after an injury. So there's all that that's going into consideration when talking about Saquon and the deal. So I was a little surprised that Saquon was tagged and DJ got the extension because I thought it would have been the other way around. And I think every Giants fan thought that. Even non-Giants fans were like, well, yeah, you signed Saquon to the extension and you franchise tag Daniel and be like, Daniel, prove it again. And my God, where would we be as an organization if that actually happened? And if we did give Saquon the franchise deal, sorry, not the franchise deal, if we gave Saquon what he wanted and then franchise Daniel comes out in 2023, underperforms, you then know, okay, we can move on from Daniel and we don't owe him 22 million in dead cap or whatever the next year. Instead, you did the opposite. So days after the franchise tag was applied on Saquon, he has the meeting with owner John Mara. Apparently, they cannot negotiate or talk about negotiation, which I always thought was interesting. Like, oh, okay. And I guess that's what's happening in the NBA now with the Kawhi Leonard contract controversy and Steve Ballmer. Like, owners are not allowed to get involved directly. And so Ballmer did a workaround behind the scenes with a shell company or something. I don't know. I'm trying to keep up with it, but it's hard. So I guess they didn't want to have that happen in the NFL and with John Mara. So they're not allowed to talk about negotiation. Saquon's saying he wants to be a Giant for life. And John Mara is saying that we want Saquon Barkley to be a Giant for life. And the goal is to get to $14 or $14.5 million per year. Yeah, eventually, Saquon does ask for the trade, request a trade, and Mara's like, no, you're too valuable. Which, again, it's the way that this organization handles things sometimes. They're so stupid. It's like the guy does not want to be here. And you don't blame him. Because what have you done for him that would make him think that you guys have any kind of upward trajectory or any hope or aspiration of becoming a winning team and winning championships, especially in that 2023 season? For John Mara to say you're too valuable to trade, you can't put a value on it. But then when it comes to assigning a value to his contract, you lowball him? Again, very confusing, very conflicting, like talking out of both sides of your mouth. It's just, I don't know. I guess it's just how business works. But Joe Schoen ends up getting in the call. This was such a funny scene because, like, when Saquon's talking to John Mara, you could tell he's focused. He's paying attention. Like, there's a lot of intention there, which I don't like using that word. It's so stupid. But it's like there's a focus there, there's a concentration. It's like they're both. It's like they really, each side really wants to get something done, and then they cut to him, Saquon, talking to Joe Schoen on the phone. Saquon is just playing video games the entire phone call with Joe Schoen. I mean, at that point, you have to know that's not happening. Like, the moment I saw that where he's just playing video games the entire time talking to Joe Schoen and like not paying attention, I was just like, oh, yeah, that was it. That was it. Whenever that happened, that was it. So that was even before the 2023 season. Yeah, so this is the 2022 offseason. At that point, Saquon's not signing. If you can't even pause a video game to talk to the general manager about this, like, nah, dude. And Shane made it a point to say, quote, John's not going to trade you. So that is either Joe Shane throwing John Mara under the bus as owner, which not a great look for Joe Shane. And if John Mara, probably not going to watch the documentary, but he should, because that is incriminating for one of you. Either John Mara did meddle and tell Joe Shane, do not trade Saquon Barkley, which is counter to what he's claimed publicly to the media and the press that, oh, I'm not meddling. I'm letting them make decisions. So it's either damning and it condemns, incriminating of John Mara, or it's incriminating of Joe Shane, who is scapegoating John Mara, which is not a good look either. So if John Mara finds out about that, like, you're using me as an excuse to say you're not going to trade Saquon. So it's just, man, calamity of errors. So he wants 14 or 14.5 million per year. Saquon does. This is where the numbers get really confusing, because Shane is saying, well, our offer was 13 million, and that puts you in the top 5, which, if you look at the numbers, Saquon was a top 5 running back. He was not the best running back in the league. He was top 5, and the Giants were prepared to pay him as if he were a top 5 running back. And then this is where it gets so infuriating and frustrating. Saquon's now going to say, oh, well, I was born in the Bronx, but we left in 2001. So I was only there for like 5 or 6 years, and I was mostly raised in Pennsylvania. It's like, what happened to all that I'm from New York, I don't want to leave New York talk? Again, you didn't really believe that or feel that. You just said it because you thought people wanted to hear it. I love that he was hanging out with Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is funny. It's still wild and weird to me to see like a Giants player hanging out with a Cowboys player in the offseason. Micah asked Saquon, hey, what has been your biggest accomplishment or achievement so far as a professional football player? And he was like, well, I own 2 houses and I bought my mom a house. It's like, not the greatest answer. It's like, well, it's nice that you're able to buy your mom a house, but at the same time, it's just like, it's money. Okay, got it. You know, Saquon was saying, like, well, if football doesn't work out, what would you do? And Michael Parsons said he'd be a bowler. So the deadline to sign the franchise tag came around in July 2023, and the gap was $1 to $1.5 million, which is not, in the grand scheme of things, relatively speaking, for NFL players, but also professional athletes. When you're talking about a multi-million-dollar deal, $1 million to $1.5 million is like 10% of what the total contract is, and that's what the fucking difference is. It literally comes down to single percentage points in term when you talk about like the gap between signing and not signing was like 5 to 10%. Doesn't that fucking make you furious and mad? And that's why I honestly think that Saquon wanted the Giants to overpay. I don't know. It's like, you know what I mean? How many contracts have you seen? Like, it comes down to $1 to $1.5 million. And because the player has a good history with the team and the team has had success, they're like, yeah, it's a hometown discount. Like, it's only $1 million. This one, it's like, well, you absolutely have to give me the $1 to $1.5 million for me to stay. It's just like, all right, you guys don't want to. This is not going to work. Saquon saying that Shane said that the 11.5 million is their best and final, but didn't he previously say 13 million they were putting on the table would put him in the top 5? Then Saquon's coming back and saying, quote unquote, it's the principle. It's fucking not the principle. It's the money. It's the money. Then for Saquon to say, I would have signed for 10 or 11 million if they operated differently. And it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, that's true. If they had not operated the way they had and they were a winning organization and had a winning GM and a winning owner and a winning coach, yeah, they would have operated differently. You know, and this is possibly a case of like Joe Shane thought he was doing better than he was, which he's kind of admitted to. Like, they were duped. Both Dable and Shane and Mara were all duped by what happened in 2022. By them making the playoffs and winning that road playoff game, they thought they were way ahead of where they thought that they should be. And they thought that they were making all the right decisions, and they thought that the way that they were handling Saquon Barkley was the right approach, and they were fucking so wrong. But for Saquon to say it's the principle, it's like, if you're saying it's the principle, then I don't think this relationship's going to work out regardless. Like, even if they do give you the money at this point, isn't there a weird kind of aftertaste to it? Aren't you, don't you still carry that resentment and that bitterness towards them for the way they treated you prior to signing it? And you signing it is not going to magically make all that disappear. You still harbored that? He would have signed for 10 or 11 million if it operated differently. Oof. Would you though? I don't think you would have. I wonder what would have had to happen for you to sign for 10 or 11 million. And then he asked himself, do you want to die on a sword for 2 to 3 million? And apparently, yeah, he would. And then the offer that the Giants gave him weren't incentives, they were escalators. So I guess that's another huge slap in the face. And then this is where he has the call with Mara, where Saquon says, if you can't agree on a deal, do you grant me permission to seek a trade? And Mara says, no, you're too valuable for the franchise. Again, just a poor response. Because if you really had no intention of getting a deal done, why would you say that? So again, is that like Schoen and Mara not being on the same page? If Mara really values you, but Schoen isn't? Saquon leans on James Franklin, the Penn State head coach, to give him some advice. What should I do? Should I sign it? Should I not sign it? And Franklin says, you go out there. The Saquon that I knew when you were with me and playing for me would go out there and ball out, prove your worth and prove your market value and increase your market value even more. And so Saquon agrees. So going into that 2023 season, we have the blowout loss on the home opener to the Cowboys, which was bad. We lose Andrew Thomas. Week 2 in the Arizona comeback win, he sprains his ankle against the Cardinals. I guess that for him was like the final nail in the coffin, was like, there's nothing I can do. There's no long-term contract to be had here. He said the joy was so far gone and he had no hope with regards to contract negotiations. So I think if you go back and listen to a lot of my episodes from that 2023 season, it's just like, I don't see like just his body language and the way that he's talking to the press. It's like he has no desire to stay here. And why would you blame him? So then the 2024 offseason comes along. I believe he asked Shane in that call where he's playing video games and talking to Shane. He's like, I don't want to have to do public leaks, which again, the thought that he's even thinking about that is kind of like, are you really the good dude that you're purporting to be? Or do you need to be a little more authentic and genuine in that, yeah, you are a little bit of a villain? Anyway, do you grant me permission to privately have my agent talk to some teams and put out the feelers for a trade? And I forget what Shane's answer was, but I think it was yeah. So Saquon had his agent. I don't know if it was his agent or his manager, but there's Kim. I think that was his agent. I guess they weren't able to get a deal done, and that's when they brought in this other guy, Ed Barry. Does Ed Barry work with Kim? The agent situation also was kind of confusing because it's like, was maybe Kim at fault for not getting a deal done, and so he moved on from her and went to Ed Barry, or is Kim his manager and Ed Barry was the agent all along? I don't know. But like, if it's not illegal, why didn't his agent or manager reach out and put the feelers out for a trade? There's a reason why Saquon has a conviction. He really does. He, for the most part, believed in himself. Now, he had some really low moments in 2020 and 2021 where he was questioning himself. He had a lot of doubt, but then he gets his leg back to where it was, and he has a great 2022. And so, he believes in himself. He believes that he's not done. He's not cooked. He's not washed. And he basically cites and references a lot of his idols growing up. So like Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, Curtis Martin, a lot of the greater running backs that we know and love, their prime was from 26 to 30, which Saquon was entering in the 2024 season. And, he wants to play and win championships. So he ends up accepting the franchise tag for 2023. It's a shit season, and he very early on knows, okay, like, we're not going anywhere. I'm not getting a long-term deal done. And the Giants apparently do not believe in a second franchise tag and didn't like that they had to guarantee $12 million for a full year. And so that's when Sheen goes and tells Saquon to find his market and then come back to him and match the offer. And this is where there's also some confusion, because it's like Shane's claiming that Saquon's team did not come back and allow them to match an offer. Whereas I think most likely Shane was given the market value and said no. Anyway, Eagles guaranteed 25.5 million. Could be worth up to 47.5 million. I still don't understand how this is a long-term contract. I guess if it's 3 years, that's long term. But even rewatching this, even knowing how everything turns out, I still watching this sequence got sick to my stomach and got nauseous watching him show up at the Eagles facility where they are elated and just overcome with joy to have him in the building. And he is smiling, which we have not seen Saquon smile in so long as a Giant. And he had a positive outlook. They had a positive outlook. Fresh, new. He felt like a rookie again. I mentioned this in the recap of the Eagles game, but first time playing the Giants back at MetLife in 2024, he goes off. He calls Dexter Lawrence a little ass boy, and Lawrence just took it. Zero fight back. He truck stick Dane Belton, and he just kept saying belt to ass. And he says, when I get to a good team, that stuff does happen. Does he think that he could get to the MVP level with the Giants? And he said no. That had to be an ongoing thought for Saquon. Probably started in 2019, where it's just a little bit of a thought like, oh man, am I ever going to be able to get to that level with this team? And then to have what happened in 2020 and 2021, just kind of like see the needle moving the other way of just like, nope. So no, he would not have been MVP level with the Giants. But I do wonder if you put him on this current team with this offensive line, would it be the best as a Giant? Maybe, I don't know. But he had a tremendous amount of energy in that 2024 season. He had a level of burst that we just had not seen from Saquon Barkley. We saw hints of it in 22, but his season in 24 with the Eagles, first season with the Eagles in 24, was pretty much on par with or exactly the same as his rookie season with the Giants in 2018. We always like to take a look at the numbers and the analytics and all that stuff, but man, a lot of times, and we're seeing it with the Giants now in 2025 with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo, a lot of the times it comes down to the desire to win, the energy, the enthusiasm, the mentality, the mindset, the perspective. When you feeling good and positive, you play better. I know it sounds simple, but like he rarely was getting into that mindset. Anytime he was making some progress, there was a major setback with the Giants. In year one with the Eagles, he sets a franchise record for rushing. So fast forward to December, the week before Christmas 2024, the Eagles have 10 straight wins, which they've never done before. To win the MVP, he would need to break Eric Dickerson's record. He could break the all-time rushing record for the Giants, but he sat out because the seed was locked. In the wild card, they're winning, so they're playing the Packers, and they're up, and so he goes down to the ground, slides after a first down. And I wanted to point that out because, he comes over the sideline and, AJ Brown and DeMonte Smith were like smiling and like, what are you doing? You had a touchdown. You should have got a touchdown. And then he kept saying, yeah, but I got the no mas. I got the no mas from the head coach. I bring that up because he made a statement there during that, reacting to what happened. He said, if the coach says no mas, I am no mas. The coach is the leader. The player follows orders. He has a better relationship with, I just didn't see him interact with and have a relationship with Pat Shurmur or Joe Judge or Brian Dable. But yet, it seems like he has a really good relationship with Nick Sirianni. We Giants fans hate Nick Sirianni. And I don't know, during their Super Bowl run, you heard about how all this bullshit about that the media wants to portray that, the locker room of the clubhouse doesn't like Nick Sirianni. That's crazy. We love Nick Sirianni. But then we're now back to, in 2025, people saying just what they were saying in 2023, which was the players hate Nick Sirianni. It's like, what the fuck is going on in Philly? Like, Philly's a whole nother level of dysfunction. When you win, the dysfunction is kind of glossed over. But if they want to get right, I think they have to have a come to Jesus. That just goes to show you where Saquon's head is at. You can have this really talented, amazing, physically gifted player, but if the coaching is not there and the coaching is not supporting the player, they feel lost. In a divisional round against this was against the Rams when they almost lost in the snow. Sterling Shepard was there with his family in the suite. Daniel Jones was there with his family in the suite. And the Giants either didn't know about that or didn't pay attention to that because you tore all that apart. You said, oh, we don't need Sterling Shepard anymore. And he goes off to the Buccaneers and he's making plays. Oh, we don't need Daniel Jones anymore. So like we're gonna grant him his release and not get anything for him, and he's gonna go on and lead the Colts to a 4-1, 5-1 record now. But it's just like you have these core elements, right? And it's like they're just starting to gel and there's some chemistry there, and you're just like, nah. Because of the other moves that you made. The moves outside of those players were poor, and you didn't do right to support your core players. Why didn't you give Barkley and DJ and Shep an offensive line and a play caller that understands their strengths and weaknesses? So in that divisional round game, he hit a couple. I think he hit a couple long runs. He definitely had one long run for a touchdown. He might have had two. And he said that he was in the quote unquote flow state where everything you do is right. And he equated that, or made the analogy of it's like a rapper playing his song at a concert and he doesn't rap at all. He just lets everyone else sing the lyrics. That's when you know you're in your flow state, like everything's going right. And for me, I make the Michael Jordan analogy when he was in was it Game 6 or whatever in the NBA Finals against the Utah Jazz, and he just can't miss a three. He's just hit his 6th three in a row or something like that, and he just turns to the bench and just shrugs his shoulders. You know, the shoulder shrug from MJ. That's what that game was for Saquon Barkley, and we rarely saw that towards the end of his career with the Giants. Man, that championship game sucked against the Commanders. The Commanders had really poor tackling. My God. Super Bowl was on his birthday. He said he was focused, determined, and he had, I forget who it was on the bench and was like, it might have been Zach Bond. It's just like, I'm glad that motherfucker's on our team. It's like, yep, rather have him than not. His ability to, on that one play down the right sideline where he's like, he basically like just leaks out, as kind of like a last resort swing option for Hurts. And then basically the defender comes up, so he decides to take off down the right sideline. Hurts sees him. Saquon's able to stay in bounds, which is incredible, and then makes a juggling catch. Didn't have a big game by any means, but Jeffrey Lurie comes up to Saquon after the game and says, "You're the epitome of everything I believe in." Nick Sirianni saying, you made this happen. Jalen Hurts saying, you were the last piece, man. We were good, but you were the last piece of the puzzle. And then he said that he played with vengeance and that doesn't work and that doesn't last. And I'm wondering if he's referencing the 2021 season with the Giants, where it's like, or 2020 and 2021, where, he's getting some heat for how he performed in week 1. And so he went out in week 2 to play with a vengeance, and look what happened. He tore his ACL. Or does he mean in 2021, where it's like he's coming off the season-ending injury in 2020 and he has a lot of doubters and a lot of critics coming down on him and criticizing him, and so he played that year with a vengeance and look where it got him? Or is he saying that 2024 he was playing with a vengeance and look what happened? Ran for over 2,000 yards or whatever. So I don't know, but I will say this, like, so far his 2025 season has been very lackluster. He's not hitting the big home runs. He's not getting the big chunk yardage. He's not as integral or active in the game plan. His numbers are not wowing or popping off the numbers. He's not on pace for another crazy season. There are no MVP chance. So we'll be interesting to see how it plays out in 2025 and in 2026. But so far, yeah, he's won. He won that divorce. There were 700 hours of film for this documentary, and it was filmed over the course of 127 days. So listen, I don't know that this paints Saquon in a better light or more positive light. If anything, it shows to the world that he wasn't true to himself or to others, because he kept coming back to that, say the right thing, do the right thing. But it's like, was he doing it for the right motivations and purposes? I don't know. But yeah, I think Joe Schoen looked really bad in this documentary. And I don't know how John Mara can watch this or see this. He probably will not watch it or see it, but he should, because it does not look good for Joe Schoen. And listen, I understand. That's definitely a prime directive from Saquon's team. Like, we need to make Joe Shane look like a shit to see that Saquon wasn't at fault. It was Joe Shane's fault. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. You can't say you want to be a Giant for life and then you balk at a difference of $1 million, $2 million. You can make that up in one endorsement. Like, that's where the principle of it is just really grinds my gears. But so that was the Saquon doc.